Alrighty, so recently on the 9.1 PTR balance route has gotten a couple of changes that have people proclaiming that balance is dead and it's time to reroll to Elemental Shaman. And there are a couple things that have occurred, and they are, I would say, medium changes. None of them actually change like the general play style of the spec and the class, but it's definitely not great for the spec. So let's talk about what these changes are. So first off, Moons got buffed. The cooldown got changed from 25-second recharge to 20-second recharge. I'll show you the numbers on this in a second, but this talent still isn't fucking playable. Even with this immediate nerf to Solstice coming immediately after, right? Changing shooting stars percent chance from 300% to 200%. Basically, this doesn't make Moons viable. This makes Solstice never playable. I didn't mean to click on that. This makes Solstice never playable. And so you know what that leaves, right? We're just playing Fury of Elune all the fucking time again. I mean, this our talent rows are so fucking bad that we just play Fury of Elune all the time again. Which... it's another bind, I guess. Doesn't really do anything. That talent row is like horrendous to the point where it doesn't really matter. You can play whatever. I'm sure it's fine damage wise. It actually just does not matter. But I guess according numerically, we're Fury of Elune only, which is kind of funny. Now let's talk about the reason that people are fucking doomsaying, and it's because of this Stellar Drift change. So previously, Stellar Drift made Starfall increases damage by 15%, made Starfall's duration be 10 seconds, not 8, and then allowed you to cast while moving, which basically allowed us to have permanent casting while moving ability. Now they've changed it to Starfall deals 25% additional damage. All right, that's fine. But now Starfall has a 15-second cooldown. And how I read this is the casting while moving part had a 15-second cooldown. But apparently, I was fucking a fool. I don't know why I suspected that, but I was a complete dumbass and didn't understand that, hold on, I logged into the PTR to test this out because I was like, there's no way they did this, right? No, fucking Starfall has a 15-second CD. So I don't know who designed this change, but this change is bad. So let's talk about why this change, I guess, is bad. This is a damage loss on AoE. This talent, making your Starfall have a 15-second cooldown, is a strict damage loss over not having a talent. That shit's not okay. I would understand them trying to nerf Stellar Drift. That makes sense. In a reading comprehension. Yeah, my reading comprehension apparently just sucks, because I was like, I don't understand what the fuck this changes. I understand them wanting to change Stellar Drift. This would make sense. However, I don't understand who the hell thought that making Starfall have a 15-second cooldown is the right play. Because what you immediately go and do is you take off Stellar Drift. You go and you take off Stellar Drift and you spec into Twin Moons for the remainder of all of existence on AoE. There is no other talent here for AoE. Stellar Drift is a dead talent outside of single target when you need movement. Infrequently. I guess it would be good maybe for something like Stone Legion Generals, but even then I think you would rather play Twin Moons because this one is actually like a quantifiable AoE gain. So it's like not okay. So Stellar Drift is now a dead talent, and Solstice is now a dead talent. So those two talents are actually just fucking awful and never really playable. I mean, Solstice is like whatever, but Stellar Drift being actively a damage loss is perhaps one of the dumbest changes that they could have made. And they need to, if they're going to change Stellar Drift, which is fine, do whatever the hell you want, they need to make sure that it's done in a way. I would really advise them to not have this part in ever. Starfall shouldn't have a 15-second CD. You already can't overlap Starfalls, and they can fix this by making this 25% damage number a bigger number, but you already can't overlap Starfalls, but making it have a 15-second cooldown feels horrendous. This is just awful gameplay, especially how it feels to play. So there definitely needs to be a nice balance here. There has to be something. They need to relook at this one, because nerfing Stellar Drift, I get it. It's probably fucking OP. This is not the way you nerf it. This is a bad nerf. Yeah, that change is awful. All right. This change is the one that probably impacts the most. So balance of all things is probably the most overpowered legendary in the game currently. I don't think any legendary is actually even close. And because of it, it's getting absolutely fucking cratered into the ground. So it previously was 40% crit on your arcane and nature spells, decreasing by 8% per second. And now it's 24, decreasing by 3% per second. This change actually impacts a lot relative to our Covenant choices. And most notably, Night Fae Covenant, because Night Fae, of course, they're boat abusers pretty heavily. There are some numbers on this. We do have some numbers on it. Night Fae boat is still the best, right? Night Fae boat is still the best by like a pretty decent margin. But you do now see the other stuff is starting to slowly catch up. Night Fae boat definitely still the best though. I would say for raid single target, for just I would say for raid in general, I think with how it plays, it makes the most sense. It makes the most sense to play Night Fae boat even still, after all the changes, and I do think it's pretty good. However, I think that on AoE there is a major problem where now Night Fae is fucking awful, to the point where you're probably going to end up playing fucking Venthyr or Kyrian. Most likely Venthyr. I think the fucking vampires are rising again on AoE, and to the point where it's like you're going to need to swap after Prague, and actually be able to deal with all of that. It's also important to note that with the changes, I forgot to mention this, but with the changes to Stellar Drift, Oneth's Clear Vision, I don't know where the hell this was even said, but Oneth's Clear Vision is not affected by this cooldown from Starfall, and so Oneth's Clear Vision has not been modeled in Sims yet. So maybe there's something there, but it's not there yet. Just proc Starfall from Convoke, high uptime. Can you proc a Starfall for... Hold on. Where I have to run and go test this. Can I proc a Starfall from Convoke when my Starfall is on CD? Let's go look. Because I'm not actually sure the answer. Giga uptime. I'm not sure if I would describe this as giga uptime. Okay, so chat's saying yes, but I guess let's test. Alright, so we're gonna put this on the 15-second CD. Can I click it? Oh, I can just click it off. Alright, fine. And I can proc it again. Okay, we're good. And it's still on CD. Okay. So you can still get it from Convoke, but like... It does make me wonder though, like how much better, I don't know. I think that there's also something there with like the Twin Moons. Maybe you still play this in dungeons. I think that it's so far bad though that like I think they would have to like you would have to have another Prideful season for it to really make sense for you to play this again. I think that the more logical conclusion is that you're going to be playing probably Kyrian or Venthyr for dungeons now moving forward. What else have they done? Let's look at some talents. So we got 5 target talents for single target and not for Stellar Drift and non-Stellar Drift combinations. So something I want to point out is that the Stellar Drift combination sim approximately 1500 DPS lower. Very epic. But basically, this is to be expected. Soul of the Forest, Twin Moons, Fury Valoon. This really makes sense. Warrior Valoon being the best town on this row. Not too much of a shocker. Fawn being close. This is gonna be probably your Mythic Plus build. This makes the most sense. Unless for some reason you're playing fucking Stellar Drift. It would be weird for me to say that they're going to change Stellar Drift because they clearly have determined it as an outlier. I think they're going to change it into something else because like right now it being a damage loss is like, I mean, they've left talents in iterations before where they're just damage losses, I guess, but like I don't think that they normally do that. They don't normally do that. I mean, they could. Like Drain Soul, yeah. And so something else that they've also added is Legendaries. Of course, some of these are speculated. These aren't like super well, it's not known if these are 100% correct. I guess talking with the most popular Covenant, we'll talk about Convoke. Convoke the Spirit's cooldown is reduced by 1 minute and will use an exceptional spell more often. This full moon for balance. The number of spells cast by Convoke are halved and occur over half the original channel duration. So 2 seconds, you'll get 8 spells. With the opportunity to get an exceptional spell more often. I mean, this shouldn't even increase our output damage-wise realistically. I guess maybe this makes it line up with Celestial a little bit easier, so maybe it should increase our Convoke damage by a smidge. I think that overall this looks like something that would be good in like Arena. More Naya Mastery was pointed out in chat. Yeah, that's a good point. So slightly more Naya Mastery, but I think whenever you compare this to something like Balance of All Things or whatever else, there's no way in hell that this gets played unless we're actually able to wear 2 Legendaries, which has not been talked about at all on the 9-1 PTR. So I think that this Legendary is going to be largely trash, hot trash. Talking about Kyrian, and this is speculated, it's whenever you empower your bond, you and your partner's benefits are increased by 50%. This reads like it's good, I guess. It seems good, right? I don't know if it's necessarily going to be actually that insane, but it does read like it should be pretty solid. So I think that that's definitely something that it could be useful. I'm not 100% sure if it's going to be better than Pulsar for AoE. So here's the deal with Kyrian. Like, you're not going to be playing Kyrian unless you're doing like dungeons, right? You're not going to be fucking playing Kyrian for raid, realistically. This seems like it should be good for AoE. Just plain simple, this seems like it should be good for AoE. Whether or not it ends up being better than Pulsar, not really. It's yet to be seen. We'll see what it ends up turning out to be. Because I don't think the new shit was modeled in yeah. So basically the new Legendaries weren't modeled because they're not even confirmed, so no point even modeling them. Necrolord. Adaptive Swarm has a 30% chance to split into 2 swarms every time it jumps. Yeah. Yeah, very fucking epic. Yeah. Can I just delete that whole thing? Alright, cool. Alright. Yeah. So Vinthier. Yeah, so our third Covenant choice. Every time Ravenous Frenzy is applied, its duration is increased by 0.2 seconds. This seems pretty good. This seems pretty good for AoE, notably. I can't tell how good this will end up being. Will this be better than Pulsar? Maybe. I think that this runs in the same thing as the Kyrian. I'm not exactly sure if these are better than Pulsar, but I do think that like Ravenous Frenzy lining up with Celestial Alignment. Does this make Encarn better? I think that part of the problem with Ravenous Frenzy is that it's 20 second duration right now, and it lines up with Celestial Alignment, right? And so both of those are being 20 second durations or whatever. are pretty good. So making Ravenous Frenzy longer, does it really help much? It's good, right? Like the Ravenous Frenzy ability is actually going to be really strong. Does this make you take Incarn on AoE for dungeons potentially? You could also run the Celestial Alignment Extension Conduit. That's also something that you could definitely play just to get Ravenous Frenzy lining up a little bit more. Maybe that's something that will be good for us since our conduits are fucking garbage. Yeah, that also could be something. This legendary has potential to be good for the exact same reasons as the Kyrian one would be. Because whenever you're playing these two Covenants, Venthyr or Kyrian, this is probably going to be for like Mythic plus AoE, not necessarily for Raid. Because I have a high suspicion that you're not going to be playing anything except for Night Fae outside of Raid. Because Night Fae's damage profile, especially even with Balance of All Things, is still probably the best in the game at doing fucking random bullshit. And the damage profile is still really, really strong for what it is, even if the damage is a lot lower than it was in 9.0. And so that's, I mean, overall, I think that Moonkin will probably perform similarly in 9.1 as it did in 9.0, assuming that the fights are also solid for Moonkin, because Moonkin had a lot of decent fights this tier. Obviously, Stone Legion General is like the worst Moonkin fight, but there were a lot of Moonkin fights that were pretty good for us. And if they continue with that, Moonkin is still good at what it's good at, right? Burst single target every couple minutes, right? With Convoke and Celestial Alignment. Something I also forgot, they also changed Inferior Ordnance. So we're no longer able to run double on use because they made Inferior Ordnance put other trinkets on a 40-second CD. Previously it was a 20-second CD. So they wiped our double on use ability, which, fucking god, that shit was annoying. I didn't want to be playing that for forever, but that did actually kind of nerf us as well. But we're still probably some of the highest burst single target in the game. And if we're not, then we're going to be fucking just awful. And to the point where we just never brought. So, I mean, I do suspect that our burst single target is still going to be the highest in the game by a little bit, a lot of it, something like that. Yeah, overall, I do think that these changes, they're kind of warranted. I think the Stellar Drift one is fucking awful, and they probably need to like relook at like what the hell they're going to do with that. But I do think that some of these changes are kind of warranted. I think it's about when I don't know, man. The problem that I have with them touching our legendaries is our legendaries are so unfun and like not like great anyways. So them messing with Balance of All Things just makes the rest of our legendaries, all of our legendaries are like really lukewarm and kind of mediocre. But at the same time, I do understand why they would go ahead and do that. But basically, our niches are still going to be the same. We're still the only class in the game that has good spread at AoE, realistically. I mean, Aflock is like okay. We're still like the only class though with like real spread AoE. Then our burst single target is still probably unmatched. Yeah. But I think overall, I think it'll be fine. I'm not that... I'm kind of annoyed at the Stellar Drift one, but I think the rest of the changes are kind of warranted.